morning had a funny dream. My fluffy floppy was caught in the beam. He wiggled and jiggled, oh what a sight. A disco ball dancing through the night. I tried to fix it but it just won't stay. My fluffy floppy just loves to sway. It's got a rhythm all of its own. It's got the groove and it's in the zone. Flop's my fluffy floppy, let's spin and twirl. It's the coolest thing in this crazy world.
Hi guys, and welcome back. In this video I'm taking a break from the Bondwell-16 because I want to archive the discs that came with it, the originals. So I don't want anything to go wrong with those and lose them altogether. I have a few things I'm going to be doing probably in this and maybe the next video. It depends on how far I get. Before we start, another little goodies drop from Temu this week that came in, and the first one I got a clean up for the tip of the soldering iron. Now these are all free, these didn't cost me anything. The other thing I got was a breakout board for an ATX power supply, and it's fused with power on off and a power LED on here, standard ATX connector, and it gives you the voltages out on the pins at the bottom. And I think those to buy on there are something like about $6 or something. I couldn't make it for that price. The other thing that came in as well, because I could select up to so many bits to get free, so a new pair of cutters which I needed, an assortment of coloured heat shrink, which I can't find my big bag of heat shrink, so I thought this is a nice handy one. And the other thing I got was this, and this is one of those little adjustable tips, a bit like your electric screwdrivers, but it comes with some burrs and a set of drill bits. So those are all the little bits I got to come in. I picked those because I thought, what do I need? And I thought these will come in handy. They're stuff I'll use, especially the power supply breakout board for an ATX power supply. And I've got some 650, 750 watt ones there that I want to use, which will give me some high current output on those lower voltages. So I think those would be actually very, very handy. Now, the other thing we've got to look at, which is what we're going to be looking at doing, and as you can probably see over here, is this. And this is, as you've probably seen on the net if you've looked up backing up software for retro PCs, is a Grease-Weasel. Now this is the 4.1, so that's the latest revision. I've not used one of these. I've seen a little bit online about them, but it's going to be a first time for me, maybe a first time for you. So we're going to learn together. I've read up a wee bit online about it, and getting my head around some of the command line stuff shouldn't be too bad. There are a lot of different ways of doing it from what I've read, depending on the formats, but there are about 3 formats that do it in the flux of the disk. Now that gives you everything. It gives you the speed, the track information, the sector information, and all that sort of stuff of the disk you're copying. And there's like 3 different extensions for the different various types of disk. So I think that, and for preservation, that is the best to use. And then there are other tools apparently you can download that will convert those images to emulator images that will work on modern day emulators. But if we do it in the flux version of it, we can write the disks back, and they will write back in exactly the same format as they were archived on. So that's what we're going to look at doing. So you'll be learning with me. If any of you have used one of these and is a bit more proficient in it, please bear with me. And if I'm doing something wrong, please let me know and what I need to do to make it right. With the Grease-Weasel, you only need the drives and the Grease-Weasel and a modern PC with a USB. and I've got my main recording machine, which will be the one I'll be using for archiving too. So the drives I'm going to try and need. So the nice thing with the Grease-Weasel, as is with another piece of software, which is Dave Dunfield's Drive Image. Now Drive Image is an easier version to use than the Grease-Weasel, but the Grease-Weasel will do stuff that Dave's Drive Image software won't do. So there's some weird and wonderful stuff out there that Dave's software can't do, and the Grease-Weasel, being hardware, is all over it. What we're going to do is I'm going to set things up, and we're going to start with, I have a couple of old PCs, and we're going to start by finding out which one is the best of the two, finding a hard drive for it to boot up of. Then I'm going to put probably 95 OS2 or OSR2 or Windows 98 SE, and then see how we go from there. With Dave's software needs an older operating system to work properly. I'm not sure if it'll work with XP or not, but 95, 98 it will, and DOS. So I want to set up a machine. Now, 3 drives minimum realistically if you're going to look at mainstream disk formats. And that's your 3.5 inch high density, low density, your 5.25 inch high density and low density for low density reading if you need to. You need a low density drive, a 360K drive, for writing the images. This is for reliability and to make it compatible with a lot of different systems. The high density drives, unfortunately, the amount of tracks they stick down on the blank discs, or when you format and do discs, are thinner. And so what happens is that the older drives have a thicker track. And so when the new drives put the tracks down, they get 2 basically in the space of what 1 would on an older drive. So therefore when you put them into when you put the discs from one into the other, you'll get crosstalk on those tracks because the newer drives write it so much finer, so you're going to get garbage coming in otherwise. The only way you can sort of reliably stop that from happening if you want to use discs in that fashion is to bulk erase it. And you can get them for like magnetically erasing tapes and things like that. You can do that. Large magnets, the bulk erasers are like an electromagnet you can buy. You just got to be careful where you're putting it. You don't delete stuff you want. The best thing to do is to try and keep high density to high density, low density to low density. And this is in the 5.25 inch media. The 3.5s are not so bad. It's the same, it's just different amount of sectors that they're doing. In essence, we only need 2 for archiving, but if we want to recreate discs, we're going to need 3. Now, the best discs to get for the 5.25 inch, if you are going to look at archiving and recreating discs, are the dual speed drives. Now, there's only a few of those that are dual speed. There's not a lot of information on the net. There's more now than there was. I have a couple here that are dual speed compatible, and we'll have a look at those as well. There is a model drive that apparently Dave Dunfield's done on his web page, a tutorial on how to modify one of these drives, where you put a switch on the front and you can manually switch the speeds from 500 to 250. So you can actually change the speeds. So we'll have a look at that as well, and I'll show you the drive. I did this quite a few years ago. I just never got around to building a machine to put it into to use it for what I need to use it for. And now I have. So what I thought we'd do is I have a couple of these dual speed drives. So one I can use with the Grease-Weasel for the 5.25 inch reading stuff. The other one I'm going to use in the PC we're going to build. Sort out a good working double-sided 360K drive to go in here. and a 3.5-inch floppy to go in here. If the drives that are in these machines, because both of these that I'm going to look at have 3.5-inch drives, and both of them have 5.25-inch drives, and they're of the era where both of these drives are actually dual speed drives. So we'll check to make sure they work. This one here, I've got it up on the bench because I was checking it out, and it booted up. I managed to get it to boot up. I had to replace the CMOS battery, which was part of the problem. But I got it to boot up, and it was a bit dodgy on starting, and then the hard drive kicked into life, and it started up, and it's an IDE drive. Then it came up with a weird boot screen. I thought, I've not seen this before. So I took a couple of pictures and put it on our Facebook users group and said, I've not seen this. Does anybody know what this is? And a few of the guys come back and said, yeah, we used to use that back in the day. So I thought, oh, okay. So I went through to archive the drive to back it up, and wouldn't boot again. Come up with errors, so I mucked around. Then I got to start again, and this time I had a good drive as a slave drive. And so I went through and archived the whole thing up onto another drive, and it's all working good. Now, it was running DOS 6.22, and it was running 3.1. Not 1.1, work groups. This is pre-work groups era. So I archived the whole thing up onto that. Now I thought I just want that for a copy in case there's drivers and things like that I need for the software. But it looks like it was actually freeware or shareware software back in the day. So maybe we can find a copy of it. But reading the documentation, I think it's pretty straightforward to go through and set up anyway. But that's something else we can have a look at. And I thought, in keeping with this machine, that'd be a nice little menu system to boot up. And I thought we can do DOS and probably a later version of Windows on it, and then look at putting the Dave's Dunfield software on here as well. I want something, I'm toying towards 98 SE for the operating system, because I want something that's going to have USB support, and I want that for ease of copying stuff around, and from flash drive or external hard drive, because I've got a couple of terabyte USB backup drives, so I can go from one to my other machine for archiving purposes. So guys, that's where we're up to. So what I will do is I will sort the bench out, sort the other bits out, and we'll have a look at getting this machine sorted so we can archive these discs up for the Bondwell. See you soon.
Bounce it, shake it, make it pop. Flex my fluffy floppy, don't you stop.
Well guys, just before we get on to doing the Grease-Weasel thing, I started playing around with this case, and I thought I'd make sure everything's working alright, and I managed to get it to boot into DOS and that, and I decided that the BIOS probably needs updating to make it more compatible, as a lot of these old machines when they come out were beta only BIOSes in them. So I had a look, and I found a BIOS that was a couple of years newer than the one that was on this. So I downloaded everything, put it all onto a floppy disk, booted up, went in, ran the software. The flash BIOS that I got, which was for this machine, trashed the BIOS itself, so it doesn't boot now. That is another job I'm going to have to do, which is remove the BIOS chip off the board and reflash it with the old BIOS that it had, because it just won't post or boot at all. And I can do that with my little programmer, with the TL8862 Plus programmer. I can do it with that. So that's something I'm going to have to do, and it's just more of a pain in the backside. It was working. I should have left it. But in saying that, the other thing, I'll just bring the other camera on for you. And as you can see, in the bottom of the case, there's a lot of rust around here. It's pretty bad over the other side as well. And I was just thinking I would like to clean this up. There is a video from a chappie on YouTube who does guns restorations, and he's actually made his own version of Evaporust. It is way cheaper than Evaporust, and it is probably 3 or 4 times more productive than Evaporust, in that it'll last a lot longer. And I will put a link to his video on here for you, so you can go and have a look. And this is what I'm going to do with this case. I went and picked up a shallow tub, because it only needs to be, if you look at the bottom of the case, it probably only needs to be about that deep at the most, because it's only the very bottom that's rusty. And this stuff will actually go through and neutralise it back to metal. Don't leave it in for days at a time on thin metal like these cases, because it doesn't have the inhibitor for eating the metal itself. It'll attack the rust first. The longer you leave it, the more it's liable to etch into the metal. But I think that, probably an hour, maybe 2 hours in the solution, we will see a big difference in this case. So that's something I will do. I will take you along on that journey. The machine, we are going to set it up. It's going to have DOS 622, Windows 95 and Windows 98. And as I said, I want 98 because I want it for the compatibility with flash drives and things. That makes it easier dumping stuff across. The other thing I've been thinking of is I do have some LS120 drives, which are like a large floppy drive if you haven't heard of them before. They're 120 megabyte and they look like a floppy disk drive, but they're not. They can use normal floppy disks that go into the standard 1.4720K drives, and they can read and write those. They are a IDE device, so they don't take up a floppy port, but they allow you to put in these specialized disks, and there are drivers for DOS and 95 and 311 for these as well. So I'm going to look at maybe putting one of those in here instead of the standard 3.5 inch drive. Then in my other machine I can put one in there on the IDE port, and I can still copy disks, and if I get drivers and things like that that are too big to put onto floppy disks, I can put them onto these LS120 disks, which I have quite a few of, and copy them across with that. Now, they're not blindingly fast. They're a little bit quicker than a floppy drive, but not a lot. It's just the storage size. Anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing with that. What I will do is I will move this out the way, clean the bench up. I just wanted to give you a heads up on what was going on. The other thing I'm going to have to do is the floppy drive, which is a dual speed one we're going to be using for the 5.25 inch stuff. I need to give it a clean and a service to make sure it's all working okay. We'll go through and do that, then we will set it all up, and we'll go through using the Grease-Weasel. See you shortly. Right guys, so this is the floppy drive from out of that machine that I'm going to be looking at, and this is one of the dual speed drives. And you can find out whether they're a dual speed drive by looking up the drive information on the net. Now I'll just put my eyes on. So this one is a Chinon, Chinon, and the model is an FR506. And if you look those up on the net, they're a 1.2 meg drive, and they're also a dual speed drive. Now they do have jumpers, and this one has them on the sides, and I'm not 100% sure if they're under here as well, but this has got to come off because this needs a clean. It does spin up, and that they are a more modern version with the direct drive motor than a belt. There should be no issues with the speeds. So what I need to do is I just want to open it up, check the gears on the head assembly, and just make sure that they're okay, and anything that might sound like it's a little bit, that doesn't sound too bad. Usually with a lot of this sort of stuff, if you spin it by hand and you hear that sort of a grinding noise, or that sort of like a noise, that's generally they need lubricating with some silicone grease or silicone oil or something, and they're binding. And when that happens, it can actually physically slow the speed down, and if it slows the speed down, then it's not going to read properly. But this is a bit dirty, and as I said, I've not had this out of this case before, so I think this will be we'll take this top off, have a look. If we need to, we can unscrew this top board and take it off to look at the electronics underneath. So I think that's what we're going to do. I will get some screwdrivers and I think we'll take this off. She's pretty dusty inside here, guys, so I don't know if you can see that. I'll just see if I can zoom this in a bit more. And there's lumps of dust balls in here, and there's dust here, and there's like little willoughby wispy bits of cobwebs floating around. So I think, yeah, definitely needs to give us a brush out and probably re-lube these, because there's a lot of dusting around those, and then probably look at giving these heads a decent clean as well. They look in pretty good condition the way they sit, but I might undo and just whip this board over. I think just got to be careful of the connectors that go into these boards. Generally you can slide them out and then pop these ones off the side and it'll come over. But we'll have a look at that, and I think, yes, we need to clean it. I'll just find my brushes. Right, so I'm going to take the spacer off because it needs clean as well. What you got to do is, some of these drives have a mechanism that you can't get to, well, it's not very easy to get to by hand. What I do is, either if you've got a old 5 1/4 inch sleeve, this is the sort of like the waxy plastic type, not a cardboard one. Or if you haven't got one of these, an old disc that you don't mind putting in there, and you just push it in there to make that lever go back, and then you can lock the heads down. Now you need to do that to take this off the front, because they have to be down in a certain position before they can come off. Now I need to take this off to do that, to take this off, and this is in here to protect the heads so they don't bang together and cause any issues. So I'm going to do that, and then, because once this is all done and we can release it, then I can take that out. So, and with these, it's generally gently prying them off the front. Some of them do have a clip or a screw in them that hold them on, but as you can see with this one, it's starting to come out the front here. And now I've got out so far, I can pop it off. Now be gentle with these, don't be too rough, because you can break these, and if you break these, good luck in getting another one, unless you can find an old dead drive to get one out of. But now, as you can see, that's off here. Now without that off, this was not going to come off, and there's 2 screws under here to undo, and then it will just pop up. But yes, unless you took that off, there'll be no way you can get that off, other than breaking it. But there's a lot of tutorials on the net if you want to have a look at stripping down floppy drives and cleaning and repairing them and that. So I mean, if you don't want to watch this, then you can skip along to another part. But I mean, this is pretty grubby. It does need a decent clean. So now, as you can see, that just makes the whole drive easier to get to. And as in under here, there's a lot of dust and gunk under it. So that's why I wanted to take this front off, because there's places like this where they collect up all this sort of garbage and stuff. Now this top is going to have to come off so I can get in under here, because it looks like it's pretty dirty. I mean, the bottom is actually a cast alloy, so that's not too bad. This can come off, because it'll come off in pieces. The only thing we don't want to do is muck around with the heads and throw them out of alignment. So we just got to gently go through and take this off, take it all off, and then I can clean and lubricate this off the machine, and then look at the main motor to see if that's got an issue as well, to make sure that's not binding. So we'll go through and we'll finish taking this apart. Right, so what I did there is, these both look very similar with a similar marking, so I just put a black mark on one of the ribbon cables and a black mark on one of the sockets, so I know which one went where. The other thing they have is they have these pain in the neck push-in connections, and they're like a very, very hard wire internally, and they push into the connectors. They're a pain to get in when you get them out. So I'm not in a really huge rush to get them out, because now I've got to try and put them back in. Now that one wasn't jumping on anything, but this actually looks very, very manky in here. It's like it's oxidized. So I think that needs probably the jumpers taking off and a good clean. But what I will do before I do that is I will grab a post-it note and a pen. And what I'm going to do is write down what the jumpers are on it. So. And I'm just putting that stuff on there just so it gives me an idea of which way around that's got to go. I don't really want to come off these pins. Let's loosen them up. And because these aren't standard jumper pins either, these are little wee tiny short ones. So with a lot of this sort of stuff is you just try not to lose it, because it's really hard trying to find them. So what you can do is, if you do lose them, you can possibly pop this set of, if you can't get these little jumpers, you can probably pop this out and put a set of little switches in, and you can get those little ones that you use a tip of a pen or a tip of a fine screwdriver, and you can flick them on and off like they have on some of the motherboards. Then you can probably replace it with one of those, because that should be fine enough pitched for that sort of thing. I think the rest of the board looks pretty much okay. There's no capacitor rot or anything on that board. It looks pretty good. So I think we really just need to give that a bit of a clean. Find the cleaning brush, wherever that's hidden. Right, and then say the other thing you can use for cleaning, guys, is just some toothbrushes. Now this one's a bit harder. This is one you use on dentures, and it's good because it's quite hard for getting into some really crusty stuff. And this one's just a mid-range one. That one's good for cleaning other stuff. So They're really good because you can just dip them in, bring them out, and then use them to give stuff a bit of a brush with. And what I do is I look at these in the supermarket when they're on special. And you can get them, they might have like 2 for a couple of dollars or something like that. Just grab a couple of different, a soft and a medium and a hard. That's all you need. And they're cheap. That looks a lot better. Definitely looks a lot better now, guys. All that crusty stuff off it. I'll give that a bit of a clean. It wouldn't hurt to just give this a little bit of a spritz over. As I say, the caps all look good. There's no bulging or anything looks like it's going to come out of that, so that's all good. Right, let's get that. Yeah, it definitely looks a bit grotty in here. Fluff and everything inside it. Now, a lot of people will think, oh, just get a can of compressed air and go in there and give it a good spritz with that and, psh, and clean it all out. Well, then what happens to all the dust? Where's the dust going to go? Up in the air. And then where's it going to go? It's going to come back down. May not go back onto this, but it'll go into everything else in your workshop. If you're going to do stuff like that, take it outside. Outside, and spritz it outside with compressed air or a can of air or stuff like that. Now, I did years and years and years ago, I got a can, and it's for putting cleaning detergents and things in for doing boards and stuff, but you compress the can yourself. So it has like a normal valve, like a bike valve on it, and you set it and you pressurize it up to, it's not very high pressure, but it's enough to make it like a compressed air can. And you can use something like that, so you're not having to buy cans of air. So if you have a little compressor or one of those little electric car compressors, you can stick that on it, pressurize it up, get it up to where you want, and then use that. But as I say, outside, not inside. Not a good thing for inside. Blowing's not so bad, but it's still not ideal. Now, it's got a bit of grease on down the bottom here. I just want to see what that grease is like. Yeah, it looks a bit. Yeah, grease looks a bit dry. I'd say we probably need to put a little bit of lubricant down on that. And to give it a bit of a clean, I think. Now, I'm sorry you can't see this, guys. It's just because I don't want to pull these cables out and take this board off. But what I am doing is you'll see the worm gear down inside here. Which is here, that one there. I'm just cleaning all the dust and the grease with dust in it off, and then what I'm going to do is just run a bit of silicone lube. I need to get some silicone grease, and to put a bit of silicone lube on that, and then just gently move the heads in and out a little bit, and just to make sure that lubricates it good. Let's put that bit of dust off there. Move that back a fraction and have a look. The thing is, if you're going to blow to get loose dust out, don't blow it like you're a madman trying to blow out 3,000 candles, because that's just going to have the same effect. You're going to blow dust all over the place. You just forcefully but gently just blow the dust, and you just want to get it out of there. You don't want it to be stuck inside. Give it a bit of a shake as well for anything loose to come out of. So I think that's okay. We have rods on that side, so that slides up and down there, so we can get to that when this comes out and lubricate the steel. There's a steel glide rail that goes under here, and that helps. With the screw on the side, that keeps it level, so they both go forwards and backwards level. And that there has a bronze bushing inside the plastic. So that we need to drop a little bit of lubricant on there and slide that backwards and forwards. And then while we have this top off, we will just give the head a bit of a clean. Now, I know getting head cleaning discs with these is quite hard. So, I've seen a couple of videos online in the past where people make their own. And sorry, it's just a bit of rust on there. That's annoying me. Sorry. Yeah, I've seen a couple of videos in the past years where people have made their own. Now I think that'd be a good idea. You can do the inner cleaning disc. You can use what's called fluffy paper. You don't want to get something smooth. You want something that's got a bit of structure to it so that it's not going to go soft and fall apart. You can get felt, and it's very, very thin felt sheets. And that's what originally the cleaning discs had in them. It was like a nylon. It was a nylon woven type of felt. And the sleeves are like this sort of a paper that have a waxy surface or shiny surface to it. If you use normal paper or normal card, it's too grippy and it holds onto it. You may have thought, why not use a floppy disk case? The problem being is inside the floppy disks there is a material pad in them, and this keeps the disks clean. And what happens is that if you pull that pad off, because you would have to, it has a whole lot of these little spikes in it. Now that's what holds those pads inside here. So by doing that, it makes it of no use. What we're going to do is I will sit down and do up a design of this. What I will do is, once I've made that up, I'll make it available online. So it won't be this video, but I will make one up. What I will do is I'll probably just use a bit of a fluffyish type paper and put that in and just gently rotate it around a wee bit and clean the heads that way. The other thing we used to have years ago, and I've not seen them for a long time, is head cleaning sticks for VCRs. And these were like a plastic stick. It was probably no more than a centimetre wide, and it had like a flat piece of soft leather that went around both sides of it. Now they were slightly bent, which would have been probably wouldn't have been too bad, but they were quite thick as well, which would have been a problem. But that sort of an idea, you could lift the head up gently, put it under there, and gently slide it backwards and forwards to give the heads a clean. And because it was flat, it would go across the heads flat, and it wouldn't be on an angle and maybe bend them or do anything weird. But you got a wee bit of force to do that with these anyway, especially the more modern ones. But I think, yeah, if we can do something with a bit of a stiff fluffy paper, or even a bit of card, just natural card, not dyed or anything, and put a bit of isopropyl on it, put it in there, and then just gently hold the heads down and just slide it backwards and forwards so it's long enough to hold it outside. And then we could slide it in and out under there, and that should clean them up. And then if we need to, we can always pop the head up and just have a check with a cotton bud. And even just visually check to make sure there's no marks or grooves or anything in the head that aren't meant to be there. So guys, so what I will do now is, this probably is going to need a clean in here, so that means that I will leave as is. I will take this stuff off so I can clean around in here first, then we can lubricate it and then put it back together. Well, there we go. Sorry guys, this is going to be a multi-part one. I didn't realise how much work is involved in some of these drives and stripping them apart. Also in giving you all the information I need to give you while doing it. Let me know what you think. If you don't want to watch all this stripping down and fixing and repairing and hints and tips on doing it, let me know, and what I'll do is I'll cut that back in later videos. But this will be a part 2, and in part 2 I will finish off doing the drive, and I'll take you into the information on doing the Grease-Weasel and backing up the discs. And as I said in the video, there are a few different models that are preferable if you can get them, which are the dual speed drives. And I have them sitting on the bench here, and we will have that in the second part to this series. Guys, thanks for coming along. Sorry it's not as exhilarating as you may have wanted it, but we'll get there on the next video. As I always say, have a great day, have a great week. Until next time, ciao.